We're back with the Tales of the Valiant classes, and this time we're talking about the Bard. Quick recap, Tales of the Valiant is a new gaming system from Kobold Press, and I'm currently going through all of the classes that are offered in the Player's Handbook. Now, just like the Barbarian, at first glance, this Bard might seem familiar, but once we dig in, you're going to see that it is a lot different from the 5e1, and I personally like it a lot better. Your hit dice is a d8, you are proficient in only light armor, and you are proficient in simple weapons and only martial weapons with the finesse quality. You get an instrument of your choice, as well as 2 other toolkits. Your saves are Dex and Charisma, and you get to choose any 3 skills that you want. And then starting equipment options. This entire second page is the class table and all the blurbs about spellcasting and saves. Feel free to check it out, read it, pause, and read where you need. I'll let you read the top part here, and then I'm gonna pull myself up here if you want to check out that class table, but this is just a lot of like the basic information for the Bard moving forward with the rest of the class features. And the first thing I want to touch on is rituals. Most of the spellcasters are going to have access to ritual spells. You'll see on their spellcasting table, it will say rituals known. They learn those along the way, and that functions like ritual spells. It takes a certain amount of time to set up, but they don't count toward your spell slots used up per day. The only restriction on choosing them is that it has to be within a circle or spell level with which you are able to cast. You can't like choose a 9th level spell as a ritual if you're only able to cast 3rd level or lower. First 5, 9th, and 14th level, you get Bardic Inspiration and bump ups within that class feature. They gain a d6 inspiration dice, and sometime in the next 10 minutes they can use that dice on any check, attack roll, or save and add it to the effect. A creature can only have 1 Bardic Inspiration at a time, and you have a number of Bardic Inspirations to dole out per long rest equal to your Charisma modifier. And like I said, eventually that Inspiration bumps up to a d12 at 14th level. And then at 2nd and 6th level, you get Expertise, where you choose 2 skills, or 1 skill and 1 toolkit, and you get to double your proficiency bonus when using that. It does mention that the restriction at 6th level kind of lifts to where it doesn't have to be 1 skill or 1 toolkit. You could hit it on both toolkits if you want, especially if you've like maybe picked up a new one that you want to be doubly proficient in. Here we have Bardic Performance. As an action, you can activate your Bardic Performance and continue it on as a bonus action for continuous turns. And you can switch out handing out Bardic Inspiration within that same bonus action. That's not a problem. You can only continue for a minute, but that's 10 rounds. Your performance ends early if you become incapacitated, silenced, or any way of restraint that doesn't allow you to do your performance. Use an action to begin a new performance, or choose to end the effect, which has no action required. You can use your Bardic Performance a number of times per day equal to your PB, and they recharge after a long rest. At 2nd level, you can choose 2 different types of Bardic Performance to perform. One is called Celebrate Life, and the other is Cutting Words. If you are performing Celebrate Life, any allies that are within range while you are performing can choose to expend a hit dice at the start of their turn, and they regain a number of hit points equal to that roll plus your Charisma modifier. Also, allies have advantage on death saving throws while you are performing Celebrate Life, though they don't have to be able to hear or see you to be able to do this. If you are performing Cutting Words, you gain a special reaction while you are performing. If a creature within range does an attack roll, a check, or a damage roll, you can use one of your Bardic Inspirations to roll and subtract from that roll. And at 6th level, you gain the Performance Clarity of Thought, where any allies that are within range can't be charmed or frightened, and anybody that is already charmed or frightened when you start the performance has advantage on their saves to break from that effect moving forward while you're performing. Continuing on, at 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th level, you gain an improvement where you can increase a single ability score by 2, increase 2 ability scores by 1, or increase 1 ability score by 1 and choose a talent, which is this game's version of feats. At 5th level, you get Font of Inspiration, which means you regain your Bardic Inspirations back on a long or short rest, and you get a new way to use your Bardic Inspirations. If an ally within 60 feet of you fails an attack, save, or check, you can use your reaction to use one of your Bardic Inspirations and add that roll to their number, turning their fail into a potential success. And again, you can do that after you know they've failed. At 9th, 13th, and 18th level, you gain Magical Secrets, which means you get to choose 2 spells from any source and add them to your spell list, as long, of course, that you are able to cast the level of spell you're choosing. No level 9s or 3s again. Now, every ToV class has 2 options to choose at level 10 as sort of midway capstone for your character, and these are the 2 options for the Bard: Persistent Inspiration and Valiant Inspiration. Persistent inspiration means that if you are tossed a bardic inspiration by your bard and you use it within the 10 minutes, it isn't lost. You get to keep it for the full 10 minutes. And Valiant Inspiration is kind of cool. If a creature has one of your bardic inspiration dice and they make a damage roll, they can actually use that bardic inspiration to increase the damage with the roll. Alternatively, if they take damage, they can use the bardic inspiration to decrease the damage that they receive. At 17th level, we gain Grand Performance, where your bardic performance range of effect increases from 30 to 60 feet. And your 20th level Capstone ability is called Curtain Call. If you start your turn with no bardic inspiration, you can use your reaction to regain a number of inspiration equal to your charisma modifier, minimum 1. And this bonus action can be part of the bonus action used to maintain your bardic performance. You can kind of get a 2 for there. And this can only be used once per long rest, which is kind of the only shortcoming of it. And considering kind of how they've set up inspiration to work in the lower levels of this class building up to this is a really clutch moment that could save the heroes in a tight pinch. As I've mentioned in the Barbarian video, there are only a few subclasses offered in each of the classes for this book, but then the book would be enormous if they did otherwise. But for the Bard, we have 2 options right now. One is Lore, and the other is Victory. As you might guess, lore bards like to preserve history, knowledge, and stories, and their class features reflect such. You do gain a new bardic inspiration option through this subclass, which is Ode to Heroes. You invoke songs and stories of heroes of legend inspiring your allies, and you get to choose an ability score: Strength, Dex, Con, Int, Wiz, or Charisma. Anybody within your bardic performance range that is an ally gets advantage on all ability checks that have to do with the chosen stat, while enemies get disadvantage on all ability checks that have to do with the chosen stat. So you can really use that to screw some of the bad guys over. You get an expanded talent list where now you can choose from not just regular talents, but also magical talents. Now, this is the subclass that gets Jack of all trades, where you get to add half of your player bonus rounded down to anything you're not already proficient in. At 7th level, you get Arcane Ritual, which in my personal opinion is broken as shit. You can just cast one of your ritual spells with its listed casting time, as long as you have all the other components that are necessary. It does say this can only be used once per long rest, but again, you're probably not going to have to use it more than once per long rest if you're using it in the right situations. Keeping that in mind, at 11th level you get Magical Rites, where you get to choose 2 more ritual spells to add to your Rituals Gnome. At 15th level, you gain Peerless Skill. When you make an ability check and you have at least 1 Bardic Inspiration left, you can use that Bardic Inspiration on yourself and add it to your own roll. If you succeed the roll, you get to keep the Bardic Inspiration, but if you do still end up failing, it is expended. And Victory Bards are the other subclass offered. They thrive in the heat of battle, rallying troops, and being strategic masterminds. And your bardic performance that you gain is called Battle March. As long as you are continuing your performance, you can choose up to 3 allies within your range of effect, and using their reaction, move up to half their speed without provoking opportunity attacks. You also gain proficiency in medium armor, shields, and 1 martial weapon of your choice. And much like the Lore Bard, the Victory Bard gets an expanded talent list, but they choose from the martial talent tree and not the magic talent tree. At 7th level, you gain multi-attack. At 11th level, you gain the ability Unified Front. When you're affected by a spell or feature that targets an area and requires a save, like the Fireball spell or a Dragon's Breath weapon, you can use your reaction to expend a Bardic Inspiration die and add the result to your save against the effect. On a success, any friendly creature in the affected area automatically succeeds on their saves as well. That's pretty cool. And at 15th level, you gain Inspired Strike. This is going to sound similar. Once per turn, when you make a weapon or spell attack roll and have at least 1 use of your Bardic Inspiration, you can roll the Bardic Inspiration and add that number to your roll. If you succeed, you get to keep the Bardic Inspiration, and if you fail, the Inspiration die is expended as normally. And that's it for the Bard in the Tales of the Valiant Player's Handbook. I hope you guys found some good information in this. Maybe there's something that inspired you to perform as a Bard in your next TTRPG excursion, maybe in the Tales of the Valiant system. The next class that we're going to be talking about is the Cleric, so all of you Divine Casters, get ready. And if you are curious about the types of enemies or allies, creatures, and denizens that may inhabit the fantasy world of your Tales of the Valiant adventures, I am going to start covering all of the monsters that appear within the Monster Vault book. As with all my monster videos, it will be a covering of the creature, sort of my 2 cents, and maybe some fun ways that the creature can be used. I made a random table to figure out what creature type I was going to cover first, and the first roll ended on Fae, so we're going to cover all of the Fae-type creatures, cross them off the list, and then just keep rolling on the list till we have covered every type of creature within the Tales of the Valiant book. That's it for now. Don't forget to love each other and keep on questing.